Listeners beware, you're in for a scare. Howdy folks, welcome to Nightmare on Fear Street, a R.L. Stine podcast, and one of the hardest things a person can do is meeting people that they admire. Now, it used to be a lot different. You would watch someone in a movie or you would read someone's book and you would most likely never really see them unless they were going around making lectures, or you saw them on an interview, or for some weird reason you're on the street and you see them at one of your favorite places, or you just lived in Los Angeles if you like movies. Now, luckily with the internet, you're able to figure out where people are going, especially Twitter, hey, I'm at so-and-so, convention and stuff, and you could go to those places and meet your heroes. Again, in the past, conventions were harder to find, as well as, finding those people that wanted to go to conventions. Again, the one thing that I've always found is that meeting your heroes can sometimes be a double-edged sword. I've met so many of the people that I truly admire. I've had great experiences with a lot of them. I've had terrible experiences with some of them, which is kind of, taint the idea of what you have in your head about them and how great they are. And it is one of the saddest things is when someone you really admire and you really, look up to them, and it turns out that they're basically a gigantic, they don't necessarily care. They care more about certain aspects. That was one thing I was afraid of coming into this. I had a huge, crazy journey. This almost felt like being in the Odyssey, where I was able to meet R.L. Stine, and just not to spoil anything, but I had a really wonderful time, and it was one of the greatest adventures I've had in the last 22 years of my life. It was a real journey. It was a real trip. I should really start from the beginning about this. So, one of my very first Goosebumps books, actually the first Goosebumps books that I ever bought with my own money, with my own allowance, was Cuckoo Clock of Doom. And I used to read that book over and over and over and over and over again. It is one of my favorite books. It has one of the scariest concepts, and my copy that I have is so old that glue is coming apart. The front cover is almost ripped in half. I need to find tape or something to fix it, because one wrong page turn and that cover is coming way off. Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, this will come to play later on in this little story. So about less than 4 days ago, before this was recorded, I was on a Comic-Con site because my friend was asking about some panels and stuff, and I noticed that R.L. Stine was making an appearance. R.L. Stine doesn't normally come to California. If he does, it's usually San Francisco for some weird reason. If he was in LA, and I would probably go. A lot of the stuff that he does, he tours more on the East Coast and the West Coast. So to get a chance to see him is a very rare thing. And if you guys don't know, the one thing, the hitch in this plan of trying to meet R.L. Stine was going to Comic-Con. Now, for people, San Diego Comic-Con is, but they don't understand that it's a lot easier to get tickets to the Magic Castle than it is to get tickets to Comic-Con, unless you know someone, much like the Magic Castle. And you either have to be grandfathered in, you have to know somebody, or you need to commit robbery, which I do not advise doing, because just getting there alone is a Herculean task. So I find this out. I'm now trying to figure out, okay, how do I go to Comic-Con? Because R.L. Stine, besides Daniel Handler, is one of the biggest inspirations of my life, and he's gotten me through some of the scariest times in my life, as well as, just wanted to thank him because I've poured hours and hours and hours into his world. Just saying thank you could mean a lot to somebody. Getting to Comic-Con, that was the easiest part. My friend needed help at his booth, so I'm not going to say who he was, but he was able to help me get in, and I had to work his booth for a little bit, so that was going to happen, but he let me, I needed to leave super early, because if you don't know, Comic-Con San Diego, to get there is either you can get from my house is about an hour and a half. If you get off at the wrong time, you are going to be stuck in traffic for 3 hours. I needed to get there by 7 o'clock in the morning. So I left at exactly 3:30 in the morning to drive to San Diego. The trip was easy. It was, there was no traffic. I had to stop, go to one restroom, coffee break, and I get to San Diego, and the first thing that you have to find is parking. Now, San Diego Comic-Con is notorious for parking just because people will raise their prices to exorbitant amount. The most I had to pay for just just a flat fee was $40. Now, there are places that charge $60 up to $80, depending how close you are to the convention and how much capacity they have left. I've heard stories of there is a last floor left, so they'll raise it up to $100. And people will pay that just because there's so many people there. They're just driving in. A lot of people get hotels, and those hotels, that's another story, but I didn't get a hotel. I was just there for the day. It became a crazy adventure of how just getting the parking. Okay, so I get out. It is now 6 o'clock in the morning. I need to wait in line to meet my friend, get the stuff, and we're going to go into the line. So I was going to help him set up, but he decided, no, you need to get in this line and wait. So I get the parking. It's again 6 o'clock in the morning. The homeless people are still out. Like, they still have like their camps. First, I thought there were people camping out, but it made no sense seeing how I parked about a mile and a half away from the convention center. So these people were really efficient. They packed up the second the sun came up, they packed up all their stuff and they were gone. So I walked to the convention center, and there's already quite a huge crowd. And as you're walking through and trying to figure out where the general admission to get into to go up to the sales pavilion, where the sales pavilion would be where you would have to get a ticket. Now, here comes the stupidest thing that I've ever had in existence. It kind of makes sense once I thought about it more. To meet R.L. Stine, world famous child horror author, you needed to win a lottery, because so many people would want to meet him. Normally, at some conventions, you would just go up to people and you talk to them and they'll sign your book and stuff. Now, for R.L. Stine, you needed to get a lottery. So you needed to get a ticket. And to get a ticket, you had to wait in line. And if you didn't get it that time, you had the option to go back in that line. But that line was 3 hours long. So you needed to get it that first chance, or you're more than likely not going to be meeting R.L. Stine, world famous child horror author, or anyone else in that case. So what you do is get up super early, try to grab some friends. I had some friends, so I need to have a shout out to the Tucker family. They were willing to help me. They had a little family emergency, so they weren't able to come as early as they were planning to. But, they apologized, and it became almost like I kept telling him every step of the journey. So I need to thank specifically Rachel Tucker. It was really funny, especially with Rachel, just because we were coordinating with Facebook, and we never met once through the convention, just through text. And as I was getting closer to the line, I kept sending her messages I might need you guys to resuscitate me. Do any of you guys know CPR? You might need to drive me home. I might lose my memory. Something bad's gonna happen. A lot of the time she was just oh no, you're fine. Don't worry about it. You'll do good. I'm so happy for you. So that was the kindest thing. And I don't normally get starstruck, but I just had to cover all my bases there. So shout out to them again. You're all super wonderful. Thanks, Rachel. So, they weren't able to come, so it was just going to be me. And I'm notoriously bad at having luck. I don't win squat. So getting this I needed to grab as many rabbit's feet as possible. I needed to find leprechauns. I needed to do everything in my power to be as lucky as possible. If I had the option and it was, 5:55, I would make a wish on that if I could. So back to waiting in this line. So I get there, and the line to get into the general admission, to get into the building, the San Diego Convention Center is a really huge venue, and it wraps all around basically a harbor. Now, I walked, turned left, kept walking, went across the street, turned right, kept going straight past the hotel, kept walking for another 10 minutes, turned right, kept walking to the end of the harbor where physically you would be hitting water, turned right, and then I kept walking. So I was at about a quarter of a mile past the convention center to let people, come into this convention. And it was weird. People were cutting. It was just like a clusterfuck. And on top of that, there are people trying to get into Hall H. Now, Hall H is where they do their big panels. So they'll do their Marvel panel, their DC panel. And people were camping out there for a night. So that was already packed. People were still trying to figure out, can I get in? Will there be enough space? Well, I'm just trying to get into the general admission. 50 minutes later, so it's about 7. They're supposed to opening up the lottery at 9. I get there, get inside, scan the ticket, everything was fine. I go upstairs and ask the first person, where's the sales pavilion? And they say, I don't know. And so I just start this huge adventure of just asking everyone that says, ask me a question. I got your information. Until I was finally directed by a person in security that doesn't really associate with the con where to go. So I walk there. I'm asking, okay, so how do I get into the, limited availability, audition. Oh, go this way. So I go into another room outside, and they pointed me to the wrong place where there was just more, places to line up so you can meet the Game of Thrones actors. You can go to like X-Men and all that stuff, and that's not what I wanted. So I asked 3 more people, and again, another security guard told me very nicely. His name was Aaron. Very nice guy. He was very personable. He was actually like, "Oh, you're gonna meet R.L. Stine. That's really cool." So shout out to Aaron. He directed me to where I was supposed to go. Where I went upstairs to another waiting room where I was stuck there from about 8 o'clock. That's when I was there, waiting in line with a bunch of people. I ended up hanging out with some really nice people because we're just stuck in line, and you make a lot of convention friends when you're stuck in line. So shout outs to Chrissy, Stephanie, Adrian, and Nancy. Yeah. Now, this is a really good time to bring up something that I've always found fascinating. I've been going to conventions for quite a long time, most of my teenage years. Anime Expo, Midsummer Scream, Scare LA, Long Beach Comic Expo, Long Beach Comic Con, Kamikaze, now it's Los Angeles Comic Con, Galley One. There's like so many conventions I go to. And one thing that I've always found that's been notorious is people that go to conventions can be sometimes very cutthroat. And what do I mean by that? I don't mean they're like literally pirates, but people will do everything and anything to get what they want, especially at a convention, because conventions are pretty much designed, you only have so much time to do stuff, so how can you maximize it? Well, if you want an autograph, you will do literally anything and everything. While waiting in this line, I experienced people trying to cut into these lines, trying to flirt in this lines, trying to do anything humanly possible to get closer to the line so they could try to grab a lottery ticket in hopes of getting it. So stuff like that happened, and some people were coming up to me asking me who I was trying to get, and some of them, they'd be like, "Oh, I'm trying to get R.L. Stine," and they're like, "Whew, one person less for so-and-so from Steven Universe." So people would ask you like who you're trying to get, maybe like to like recruit you for their mission to try to see this person. So stuff like that happened. I met very little people that were there for R.L. Stine. They didn't even know really like that he was there. They were just there for Steven Universe, some famous artists, some people from TV shows. And this line was just super crazy. I think the funniest one though was a couple people ahead of me was trying to like cash money to let them cut in front, and they're like, no. The people in the staff were just like, I don't really care, as long as they're in the line, and the line was like broken up into 2 sections, so our line stopped, and then the line would continue farther. Much farther. So like it would have been 3 hours to get another ticket from here. So this lottery was really super important, and people knew that. And people were just there because the people that like such as R.L. Stine only has a limited time to sign, so you really need to get that lottery ticket. It was as if you were at like a bazaar and people were just trying to sell things, trying to cut in line. It was cutthroat, and I find that to be super duper interesting about these lines at Comic-Con. I can only imagine what it's like to go to like Hall H. Do you imagine all that weird stuff that happens there and what type of favors? Like I'm pretty sure people like sign up hits that like take people out. Trying to meet R.L. Stine, I met some interesting characters, and a lot of them were just people trying to cut in line and talk about random things and ask weird questions about how many cats I had. Yes, that was an actual question someone asked me, and I own 0 cats. I own a dog who's actually in my room right now, so shout out to Rosie. Thanks, Rosie. And it was getting hotter. The sun was up. It was hitting us at the right angle, and it was just a miserable experience. Overall, people were getting like kind of mean, kind of antsy, kind of squirrely, and we were on the 2nd story. You had to go down low to get there. As that's happening, people are still freaking out like, why can't I get my tickets? This is kind of blah 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 blah. And there were people behind me. They were telling me about the Harry Potter incident a couple years ago, and how a person was fighting over a seat at, I guess, a Harry Potter panel, and another person dressed as Ravenclaw stabbed another person in the eye with a pencil. So that was hardcore, but I guess they changed some policies around because of that. Finally, the line starts moving and we head downstairs and we get to it. I get into the place where you're supposed to do the lottery. It was almost like the Hunger Games. It was like deathly still. It was silent as the grave. I can't keep making cheesy things. We get to this line, which not that many people are lining up. They're trying to meet like other people. And I get into line and I'm about the 10th person in and I just see they have like this bowl and they're like, Zachary, blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, oh my God, I'm going to be chosen. So you see people coming in. The first 10 people that were there were some of them were getting high fives and stuff like they got it. You needed to get a stamp on your ticket. And to do that was the lottery. So now it's me. That was where I had my one chance. Not that many people were willing to help me because it was just going to be me. And if I got it, I got it. If I didn't, I didn't. And this trip to San Diego would still be fun, but I wouldn't be able to say thank you. And it was a very quiet moment. As I grabbed into the bag, I started ringing around. I was praying to old dead elder gods, anything that could help me out here. I grabbed the ticket. I closed my eyes. I hold my breath. I lift it out of the bag. I look at it. And there's the stamp. If you could have angels, you could have fireworks and NASCAR going on. That's what was just exactly happening with this experience. I get a chance to meet someone that has really helped my life. And it was a very, very sweet, sweet moment. More sweet than you can imagine. So I get my ticket. I have to be back here. He starts the signing at 2:30, so I'm going to be back there either by 1:55 or exactly 2 on the dot, just in case there's a huge line. So in that time, I helped my friend with his booth for a bit. It's time to do random walking around the con. The convention was fun. I had a lot of fun. I bumped into some old family friends, the Lloyd Kaufman and Patty Kaufman, so shout out to them. It was fun. Keep trauma stuff alive, and if you haven't seen Return to Nukem High Volume 1, you can check that out on DVD. I'm in it. My uncle's in it. That's a whole crazy story. Part 2 is coming out really soon, so go watch that. Check out some of their other stuff. I'm not reading a plugin. I just like saying how awesome this is. So I ended up talking to them. I kept on going around to other booths, talking to other people, and I finally look at my watch. It is time to go meet R.L. Stine. So I run upstairs. I end up talking to a person that's a steampunk Ghostbuster for a little bit because I was hungry and got a pretzel. And that was an interesting conversation just because we ended up talking about cars. And I don't normally talk about cars and hybrids. Finally, I go there. I'm waiting in line. I'm with a bunch of people. And I swear to God that there was the world's most drastic age difference here. I'm 22, so half the people there were about 22, 23 to 30, and then the other half were people that were 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. So it's a weird juxtaposition where you just have really tall people and then really short people. It was weird. It was a trip, so we're just waiting there, and I'm getting nervous. I have my copy of Cuckoo Clock of Doom with me, and I had brought it with me because I just want him to sign this. Just because if you want a catalyst to where my creepiness really began, it was with this book and with R.L. Stine. So the time's clicking away and we are waiting, and off in the distance I spot R.L. Stine. No one knows who he is. He perpetually looks the same as he did in the 90s, just a little more grayer. But that's about it. It is the weirdest thing. So no one knows who he is except for me and another person, but we're not going to say anything. We just were talking to each other. He sits down and they start doing the signing. Now I'm about 25 people in. He's going, I noticed that, people are just buying the books on the side, signing them, then walking away. Some people have copies of Man-Thing. He's signing it. They walk away. I'm getting, more nervous because I don't normally get starstruck, but starstruck in this case was fine. I didn't know what to say. It was really hard. I had this huge grand paragraphs, but I knew that you maybe only have a couple of seconds. We get down to 5, 3, 2, 1. It's my turn. I'm so nervous. I just might say thank you. I might just get my picture. It's almost like in Christmas Story where he tries to meet Santa Claus and he's so starstruck that he just asks for the BB gun and Santa's like, he'll just shoot your eye out, kid. That's kind of what I felt like. And then they kick you down the slide. I get to him and I hand him my book. And he looks at it because this thing is tattered. I'm going to send some pictures and show you guys. This thing's tattered, broken. And he starts signing it, and then he realizes how delicately like it is. And he looks at me and he says, this book's got some mileage to it. And I, explained to him it was the first book that I ever bought and ever finished by myself to learn how to read. And he stops. He shakes my hand and he says, thank you. And I start going off like, I'm just going to say exactly what I said. I said, I had a lot of things I wanted to say, but I really just wanted to say thank you. You got me through some of the scariest moments of my life and gave me some good thrills. I do a podcast about your books, and I just wanted to tell you, thank you for everything you've done for me, and I'm happy that I've gotten a chance to experience your world. And he just stops, and he just he thanks me. I tell him about a friend of mine who also had met him previously, who actually uses Make-A-Wish, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I remember that was a fun time." It was this exchange is probably like a minute at most, 2 minutes. It felt like eternity. And he's like, "Oh, I've listened to an episode, and it was horribly." He pauses. Funny. And that just made I had the urge to cry. It was, this exchange couldn't have been more than not even a minute. I'm so awestruck that I forget that I'm supposed to take a photo. I take the photo. The only last thing I could say was thank you, and I walk away. Now, this is where things become a blur. I'm walking around the convention center. I have my copy. I bought an extra book just to have and just say I bought it in front of the presence of R.L. Stine. I text some friends that I got it. I sent the picture out. I walked for a little bit around the convention. I forgot where I was going. I ended up going into a couple loops, and I finally found a place to sit down. I looked at it. People don't realize that books and even horror movies or concepts or stuff like that can be important to people. They get you through the hardest times of your life at times, or they let you face fears. And just meeting R.L. Stine, there's been a lot of things going on right now in my life, and not much I can talk about, but meeting him and telling him how much, he means to me and how much, this world is important. And for me, I can talk about that Goosebumps is one thing that's really helped me. Besides series of unfortunate events, as a kid, I didn't have many friends. Actually, I had no friends. I kept moving all over the place, and I had problems connecting with people just because I had ADHD and a lot of other things. And for me, books were my friends. They were the true friends. So getting a chance to meet the man that really helped me get through some difficult moves and difficult places in my life. Same as with, when I thanked Lloyd Kaufman, because he pretty much did the same thing. So I met two of my favorite people in the whole world that day. Is that the smallest things can make a difference, and stuff like that. And even him telling me that he had listened to an episode was one of the nicest things. I don't even know how long he listened to the episode or what episode. He could listen for 30 seconds, but him taking the time to accidentally press play, even if it was an accident, is good enough for me. That's fine with me. I'm totally okay with that. I got it. Some people were there for just shits and giggles just to meet him. I met R.L. Stine, but you meet your heroes, you can meet your villains, but in the end, it should be the experience that you had, and I had one of the greatest experiences. I left that day forgetting where I had parked my car. It was really a surreal thing. I treasured those books. I made sure that they were in a place where I wouldn't rip them. If I was going to get robbed, they would be the least likely thing someone would take from me. I finally find my parking space and I go home. It is one of the greatest joys a person can face, is being able to face their hero and saying that thank you and how wonderful you are. It is one of those great gifts that a person could possibly give, is them thanking you back. Thank you, R.L. Stine, if you're listening to this, for being able to meet me, even if it was a very brief encounter. It was a real trip, and this entire trip I could not have done it without the help of so many people. And to every person that helped me on this journey, I want to say thank you. This is one of those things that will always be a memory. I'm going to get that photo of me and him framed. There's a really worst kept secret, and that is, guys, is that if you ever wanted to be on the show, or you ever wanted to email the show, or wanted to be a part of the show, we're super easy to find. It's not like we're an exclusive club. We love hearing from you guys. Really meeting my hero and being a chance to, understand how much a person can make a difference, even though it's a very, very small thing. I want to be able to do that for people. And even if you guys were to just the message, hey, we love the show, we think it's really funny, that means a lot me and Meg. It means that we know we've accomplished our job, and the purpose of this podcast is really to entertain, not to get, listenership, but more or less a way to discuss our creepy, spooky horror obsessions with R.L. Stine, mummies, vampires, Creature from the Black Lagoon, horrible science experiments gone wrong. We get a chance to do that because R.L. Stine was able to take everything that we love, put it in book form, and we roll with it. We are trying to make comedy. The greatest touching moment is if someone said that we actually made a difference. That's like the greatest thing someone could possibly say to us. And we love you all. So we're super approachable. So if you guys ever wanted to, be on the show or wanted to just say thank you and stuff, you're more than welcome to, because we love that. And we love all you guys. We were surprised when we relaunched the show and people were still listening. That was the greatest thing. I was afraid that when we launched, there'd be people lost interest. But the second we came back, people started sending us messages again saying, oh my God, we're so happy that you came back. And, we were just getting these downloads, and it was a nice breath of fresh air. There's been a lot that's happened. So to be able to experience that and to touch people's lives in a way that they are still listening, even though, we were away for a little bit, is one of the greatest things a person could have. And I really want to thank you all. Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys, for listening to this little bittersweet and really nice episode of Nightmare on Fear Street, the podcast all about R.L. Stine. Have you guys ever, met him? Have you wanted to meet him? You could go to his website, rlstein.com. If you want to find our show, you can find us at Nightmare on Fear Street at gmail.com. If you want to leave like a little email, maybe explaining everything, we'll totally read them on air. If you want to follow us on Twitter, that's Night Fear Street. If you want to follow me personally, that's at Suda41. If you want to follow the other co-host, Meg Tootin, that's at Meg Tootin. And thanks, guys, for a wonderful episode. And I hope you guys stay spooky. Bye.